We are live here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Ohio State opened spring practice today, and Ryan Day had a lot to say. There was so much to observe. Welcome in, Buckeye Nation, to the Buckeye State of the Union. This is the first one for the 2026 season, and it is presented by Hoggies, the official barbecue restaurant of the Silver Bulletin over on Bethel Road in Columbus. So make sure that you go in. They have a great staff. It is the best barbecue and brisket that you will get in Columbus, and we will personally vouch for them every single time. You will always be taken care of at Hoggies. But to Ohio State football, so much to unpack. One of the biggest questions is going to be the offensive line. And what did we learn from the offensive line on day one? Not a ton, but we did get some clarity from Ryan Day on guys who are going to be playing at guard, at tackle, at center. Carson Hinsman is someone who can play guard and can play center. Josh Padilla, another one who could play center as well. And then we see Arthur Smith and Matt Patricia. And this is where I want to start and frame this entire Buckeye State of the Union, because there are two former NFL head coaches as coordinators for Ohio State. And Ryan Day talked at length about this. Matt Patricia was here last year, and now he's settled in. Ryan Day said he found a love for coaching these kids in college and how he's able to impact their lives a little bit differently here in college than he was able to do in the NFL. So he is really settling in here. He had offers from other places, and he praised the board for being able to get a deal done to continue to keep Matt Patricia here in Columbus. And then bringing in Arthur Smith, who has been a head coach in the NFL twice, worked with Aaron Rodgers last year, and just so much to learn from Arthur Smith and his impact that's going to be on the offense. You now have two former NFL head coaches as your coordinators, which allows Day to step back a little bit into more of that CEO role. He said it allows me to pull back and then be more present in the building with the guys and handling some of the NIL stuff while still being involved in the day-to-day football operations. And we know that Ryan Day is an offensive-minded head coach. And one of the first questions he asked Arthur Smith was, what do you think of Julian Sayin? And what stood out to Arthur Smith about Julian is how intelligent he is. And now that's well documented in Columbus that Julian Sayin can process high-level information at a rapid pace. And he said, when you know more information, the game slows down. And that's the goal for Julian this year, is to continue to level up, is what he said, for not only Sam, but the entire coaching staff, is everyone needs to level up this year in their football IQ, because Julian has a tremendously high football IQ. But also for Sam, he needs to make his legs the X factor. That is something that is critical for Ohio State this season, because you're going to have a traditional run game. You're going to have a great passing game, obviously, with Jeremiah Smith. We'll get to the wide receivers in a minute. But for Julian Sayin, he's got to be able to make plays with his legs. That's going to be critical. Whether or not the offensive line can hold up, there are going to be critical moments where he has to make plays with his legs to extend a drive. And that is something that Ryan Day is working on this season, as well as Arthur Smith with Sayin. Now, Kyle Parker, Devin McEwen, two transfer wide receivers, something we've not seen before at Ohio State. They both looked really good today. Ryan Day said that they flashed. They're total pros already. You can just see it. So that's high praise from Day on his two transfer wide receivers coming into a room that loses Carnell Tate, Mylan Graham, and others to the transfer portal and to the NFL. It's going to be led by Jeremiah Smith, which we all know. But speaking of the transfer portal, 51 new faces are on this roster for Ohio State. That is a massive number for the Buckeyes in terms of turnover. There's 112 guys who are out here on this practice field earlier today, and 51 of them were new. So there's a lot of learning going on, guys switching numbers. So there's a lot of peeking down at the sheet here for the roster that says, okay, who's this guy? What number is he wearing now? But for Ryan Day, he said he knows everybody's faces. He just has to get used to the new numbers. Riley Pettijohn, for example, wore number 20 last year. He said, who's that number 5 today? And that's Riley. As soon as he sees his face, obviously he knows. So there's a little bit of that learning curve going on, but guys are just getting through reps. And today, speaking of reps, the offensive line, that's why there's not a big answer. A lot of reps, a lot of reps, a lot of reps. He said you're able, when you have 112 guys, as you can cycle through, get some guys work at tackle, get some guys work at guard, and then just continue moving through to figure out which guy's going to fit best where. And it was the same for the running back room, which was without Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. Both of those guys are out for the spring, which led Anthony Turbo Rogers and then Legend Bey as the two to watch today. And in that, Ryan did say that running back is his biggest concern right now, because you're missing those two guys. And Turbo and Legend are both really, really young players. Obviously, Legend Bey just coming in as a true freshman. So he said there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen. But for Legend Bey in particular, Ryan Day did say this could be a Curtis Samuel type of role for him. Although Day was not here when Curtis Samuel played at Ohio State, he does see that role as an H-back fitting Legend Bey's skill set because he said he's really explosive with the ball in his hand, and he did flash today. But for Legend Bey, you're going to see him play a little bit of running back, a little bit of wide receiver, so look for him in that slot formation. They're going to try to get him on the field once he's ready, but I know Carlos Lachlan is high on the Tennessee product. Then if we flip over to the defensive side of the ball, this is where we see a lot of the depth has left. So you see some of the seniority like Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reich, Davison Igbinosun. All of those guys have taken now to the NFL, and that's a lot of your leadership. That's a lot of your veteran guys. And that was part why Ryan Day said we wanted to get older in experience of guys who have played more football than before because he thought just transparently that they were a little bit young. And that was their strategy in the transfer portal, was to get older. Now, he does see a guy like Kenyatta Jackson as someone who needs to step up. That defensive line, it has good depth. Need to figure out who is Ohio State's best pass rusher going to be. And then at linebacker, Ryan Day does see a little bit of depth there, but Christian Allegro, he flashed a little bit today in this goal line set that was right over here to my right. He made a great play as a PBU for a linebacker that had James Laurinaitis fired up. So that's always great to see the linebackers in great coverage because Ohio State's goal line defense has been so strong the last couple of seasons. But then once you get to this back end of the defense now, that's where Ryan Day said, we've got a lot of depth there. We are the deepest that we have ever been at corner and at defensive back. So he loves the depth on the backside of the defense. Now he just needs to translate that to in-game experience because guys have played football around the country and even here in Columbus. But now that needs to all come together and settle down as the backside of that defense, which is going to be led by Jalen McLean, someone who Caleb Downs has kind of brought along. He was his mentor, if you will say, last year. Now it's time for Jalen McLean to go ahead and step up and bring the rest of that room along with him. So look for him to be a leader on this Ohio State defense, which Ryan Day said the last 2 years it's been really, really strong. And it has the potential, again, to be this year. It's just how are these guys going to come along and to develop. So all of these storylines and more are things to watch here in Columbus. We will be back live here on Thursday, so make sure that you are staying tuned to the Silver Bulletin, all of our social media outlets at Silver Bulletin, mine at Blake Biscardi, and then our website, tsilverbulletin.com, reporting live from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center in Columbus. My name is Blake Biscardi, and this has been the first Buckeye State of the Union of 2026.